Columbus, Georgia, Mrs. Martha Griffin and Miss Josie Griffin, both of New York. A host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Miss Mattie Pearl Griffin, age 71, 178 East Rock Hill Drive, Americus, Georgia. Mr. Roy Hamilton, age 60, of 301 East 18th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, March 15th at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation for Mr. Roy Hamilton, age 60, was held Wednesday, March 17, at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Mary L. Goodman Hamilton of Cordele, Georgia, his loving and caring children, Miss Victoria N. Hamilton of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Roy Hamilton Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Joyce Hamilton of Rochelle, Georgia, and Mrs. Linda Goodman Wilson and her husband, Sir John Wilson of Knoxville, Tennessee. 5 beloved grandchildren, Mr. Caden Hamilton of Warwick, Georgia, Winona, Georgia, Mr. Sturtavius Hamilton and Miss Visha Walker, both of Cordele, Georgia. Mr. John Wilson Jr. and Miss Daphne Goodman, both of Knoxville, Tennessee. His great-grand little Navita Goodman of Knoxville, Tennessee, a beloved sister, Miss Kelly Goodman, and her husband, Brother Russell Goodman of Cordele, Georgia. A beloved brother, Mr. Danny Hamilton of New Jersey, his in-law, Mr. Jesse Goodman, and Mrs. Velma Goodman, both of Ashburn, Georgia, Miss Doris Jackson, Miss Lily M. Brown, and Miss Ann Jackson, all of Cordele, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Roy Hamilton, age 60, of 301 East 18th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Mother Betsy May Holton Wright, age 88, of 917 Cypress Drive, Americus, Georgia, died Thursday, March 11th, at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Bessie May Holton Wright, age 88, was held Friday, March 17th, graveside at the Sue Walker Cemetery in Cobb, Georgia. Her beloved nephew, the Reverend Mathis Kears Wright, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted son, Mr. Roosevelt Freeman Wright III, and his friend, Miss Cassandra Walters of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved grandchildren, Miss Kiana Smith and her husband, Mr. Torrey Smith, Miss Chantel Wright, and Mr. Roosevelt Wright IV, all of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved great-grandson, Kingston Smith and Torrey Smith Jr., both of Americus, Georgia. Her sisters-in-law, Mrs. Ernestine Holton of Ellaville, Georgia, Mrs. Laura Wright of Cobb, Georgia, and Miss Susie Wright of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her beloved godson, Mr. Joe W. Jones of Americus, Georgia. A host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mother Bessie May Holton Wright, age 88, of 917 Cypress Drive, Americus, Georgia. Deacon Willie James Billingsley, Sr., age 85, of 268 Carey Street, Unadilla, Georgia, died Thursday, March 11, at the Houston Medical Center in Warner Robins, Georgia. The funeral service for Deacon Willie James Billingsley, Sr., age 85, was held Saturday, March 20th, graveside at the Evergreen Cemetery in Unadilla, Georgia. Pastor Dennis Harden officiated. The eulogy was delivered by Minister Louis Harriel Jr., pastor-elect of the Camp Creek First Baptist Church of Unadilla, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife of 59 years, Deaconess Lillian Kendrick Billingsley of Unadilla, Georgia. His beloved and devoted children, Mr. Willie James Billingsley Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Cora Billingsley of Warner Robins, Georgia. Mr. Tracy Lamar Billingsley of Unadilla, Georgia. Mr. Marcus Billingsley of Warner Robins, Georgia. And Mr. Reginald Billingsley of Unadilla, Georgia. 12 beloved grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren, his loving and devoted siblings, Mrs. Lula Mae Jones, Miss Betty Jean James, and Miss Geneva West, all of Unadilla, Georgia. Miss Marita Cohens and her husband, Mr. Lonnie Cohens of New Jersey, Mrs. Etta Ruth Lawson and her husband, Mr. Charlie Lawson of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His beloved sisters and brothers-in-law, Mrs. Rosa Kendrick and Mrs. Jackie M. Whitehead and her husband, Mr. Edwin Whitehead, both of Hawkinsville, Georgia. Mrs. Della Samuels and her husband, Mr. Anthony Samuels of Florida. Mrs. Corrine Anderson of Albany, Georgia. Mrs. Bobby Jean Gosher and her husband, Mr. Dale Gosher of Watertown, New York. And Mr. Jasper Bimry and his wife, Mrs. Carolyn Bimry of Atlanta, Georgia. A host of beloved nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Deacon Willie James Billingsley, Sr., age 85, of 268 Carey Street, Unadilla, Georgia. Mrs. Deborah Ann Green Kendrick, age 59, of 407 North 9th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Saturday, March 13th, at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Deborah Ann Green Kendrick was held Saturday, March 20th, graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Apostle Morris Jones, pastor of the People of Faith Christian Church, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mr. Travis Quarterman, Miss Latoya Kendrick, and Mr. Charles Quarterman, all of Cordele, Georgia. Her beloved stepchildren, Mr. Felix Lawrence and his wife, Mrs. Annie Lawrence of Douglasville, Georgia, and Miss LaShonda Kendrick of West Palm Beach, Florida. Her beloved grandchildren, Samaria, Charles, Kiana, Shalista, and Naisha. Her step-grandchildren, Nicole, Felix Jr., Rolanda, Ice, and Christian. 12 beloved grandchildren, Her beloved sisters, Mrs. Betty Hurd of Chicago, Illinois, and Miss Shirley Zellner and her husband, Mr. Terrence Zellner of Ashburn, Georgia. A beloved brother, Mr. Alex Green of Cordele, Georgia. Her loving aunt, Miss Golder Sanders of Mobile, Alabama. Her beloved in-law, Miss Emma Odom and Mrs. Sarah Gaines and her husband, Mr. Walter Gaines, both of Cordele, Georgia. Miss Felicia Kendrick of Belglade, Florida, and Mr. Eric Allen and his wife, Mrs. Darlene Allen of Albany, Georgia. A host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Deborah Ann Green Kendrick, age 59, of 407 North 9th Street, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. L.J. Williams, age 65, of 178 Peachtree Street, Warwick, Georgia, died Tuesday, March 16th, at the Phoebe Putney Memorial Hospital in Albany, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. L.J. Williams, age 65, was held Saturday, March 20th, graveside at the Fort Early Baptist Church Cemetery in Warwick, Georgia. The Reverend Ivory J. Corbin, pastor of the Mount Moriah Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his beloved daughter, Miss Trina Sutton of Ashburn, Georgia, two beloved grandsons, Mr. DeMarcus Sutton and Mr. Kadarius Sutton, both of Ashburn, Georgia, his loving and devoted sibling, Miss Ella Mae Williams, and Mr. Little Joe Williams, all of Warwick, Georgia. Deaconess Annie Curry of Sylvester, Georgia, and Ms. Maddie Lee Johnson of Albany, Georgia, Ms. Gladys Ray Polk and her husband, Mr. Reginald Polk, and Mrs. Mary Jean Floyd, both of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved sisters-in-law, Mrs. Thelma J. Williams and Mrs. Karen Williams, both of Warwick, Georgia, and Mrs. Winnie Mae Sparks of Jacksonville, Florida. A host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. L. J. Williams, age 65, of 178 Peachtree Street, Warwick, Georgia. Again, the family of Miss Mattie Pearl Griffin of Americus, Georgia, the family of Mr. Roy Hamilton of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mother Bessie Mae Holton Wright of Americus, Georgia, the family of Deacon Willie James Billingsley Sr. of Unadilla, Georgia, the family of Mrs. Deborah Ann Green Kendrick of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. L.J. Williams of Warwick, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you is their prayer. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Vienna were in charge of each of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. United States Navy veteran, Mrs. Doreen Johnson Franklin, age 67, of 617 Venera Drive, Altamont, Florida, died February 3rd in Florida, a native of Lee County, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted sisters, Deacon S. Gloria Mays, and her husband, Deacon Frank Mays of Leesburg, Georgia, Mrs. Bernice Brown of Albany, Georgia, Mrs. Patricia Floyd of Smithfield, Georgia, Miss Valerie Hughes and her husband, Mr. Patrick Hughes, Mrs. Elaine Mann and her husband, Mr. Marvin Mann, and Mrs. Tyrunda Talbot and her husband, Mr. Robert Talbot, all of Warner Robins, Georgia. Her beloved aunt, Mrs. Willie Florence Gant of Hartford, Connecticut, and Mrs. Dorothy Worley of Orlando, Florida. A host of beloved nieces and nephews, to include a devoted niece, Miss Rhonda Brown of Albany, Georgia, a host of cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. United States Navy veteran, Mrs. Doreen Johnson Franklin, age 67, of 617 Venera Drive, Altamont, Florida, formerly of Lee County, Georgia. The funeral service for United States Navy veteran, Mrs. Doreen Johnson Franklin, age 67, will be held Friday, March 26 at 12 noon, graveside at the Andersonville National Cemetery in Andersonville, Georgia, with military honors. Mrs. Eroyce Hughes Davis, age 76, of 309 West 1st Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Friday, March 19th at Neverson Health in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted sons, Mr. Victor Davis and his companion, Miss Mary Coley of Rochelle, Georgia, Mr. Valton Davis and his companion, Miss Alice James of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Vincent Davis and Mr. Varick Davis and his companion, Miss Candace Butler, all of Cordele, Georgia. Her beloved stepchildren, Mr. Tony Martin and his wife, Mrs. Krista Martin of Albany, Georgia, Miss Stephanie Reed of Kathleen, Georgia. Her loving and caring grandchildren, Miss LaShondra Crane and her husband, Mr. Willis Crane of Warner Robins, Georgia, Mr. Vernon S. Davis III of Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Charles Davis and his wife, Mrs. Carissa Davis of Vienna, Georgia, Miss Kareem Ming of Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Vernon Davis IV of Delaware, Miss Candace Davis and her husband, Mr. Kentavious Davis of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Victor Davis Jr. of Rochelle, Georgia, Mr. Vincent Davis Jr. of New Orleans, Mr. Donovan Davis and Miss Summer Davis, both of Cordele, Georgia. 16 beloved great-grandchildren, a beloved sister, Miss Marie Harris of Rochester, New York. Her beloved sisters-in-law, Mrs. Ida Ruth Bryant of Cordele, Georgia, and Mrs. Eartha Lee Hughes of Miami, Florida. Her beloved brothers-in-law, Mr. Lawrence Stokes and Mr. Willie Frank Walker, and his wife, Mrs. Jessie Mae Walker, both of Cordele, Georgia. A host of devoted nieces and nephews to include Mrs. Deborah Watley, Judge Gail Sims, Miss Glenda Hughes, Miss Pam Hughes, Miss Fane Hamilton, Mr. Van Hughes, Mr. Napoleon Hughes, Mr. John Hughes, Brother Leon Hughes, and Mr. Anthony Hughes. A host of devoted cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends to include her devoted friend, Mrs. Liz Hamilton, Mrs. Fanny Graham, Miss Thelma Johnson, Mrs. Ernestine Knudson, and Miss Shalise Lundy survived. Mrs. E. Royce Hughes Davis, age 76, of 309 West 1st Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. E. Royce Hughes Davis, age 76, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Guyana are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that conclude our funeral notices for this morning. And as always, we do remind you concerning our pre-funeral arrangements planning available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, with packages available with a single pay, a 3-year pay, a 5-year pay, and a 10-year pay. So please stop by and talk with us concerning your pre-funeral arrangements and needs available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And also whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.
And now for our announcements. You're invited to worship at the New Poplar Spring Baptist Church today. Morning worship begins at 9:45 a.m. via conference call. You may call 253-993-3761. And also you're reminded of the Wednesday evening worship service at 6:45 p.m. Again, you may reach them and join them by conference call by calling 253-993-3761. Pastor Johnny Dean and the members of the New Poplar Spring Baptist Church extend to you a very cordial invitation to worship with them. The Evangelistic Tabernacle Esther Mission Department is sponsoring its first quarterly drive-through food drive, which was held on yesterday, and we hope that everyone had an opportunity to get out and share in that event as well. Christ Chapel Unadilla will have a food giveaway on Wednesday, March 24th, and they will have another one on Friday, April 2nd from 11:30 a.m. until. They're asking that when you come to pick up your food that you will wear a mask, wear gloves, and 1 box per vehicle will be given. You do not have to exit your vehicle, pull up. They will give you the box and you may proceed on. This comes from the members of the Christ Chapel Church, Unadilla, Georgia. You're invited to worship with the Greater Mars Tabernacle Baptist Church today. Their conference call schedule is as follows. Sunday morning worship service at 9 o'clock a.m. Tuesday midday prayer conference at 12 o'clock noon. Thursday prayer meeting and Bible study is held at 6 o'clock p.m. The call-in number for each of these events is 229-329-7611. Again, that number is 229-329-7611. Mother Lucille Shazer is the church mother. Deacon Arthur L. Parker is chairman of deacons. Dr. K.M. Williams is the pastor. The Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church and its pastor, Pastor Gregory Williams, extends you a very cordial invitation to worship with them during their pull-up and praise each Sunday at 10 o'clock a.m. They are located at 1818 U.S. Highway 41 North in Cordele. Pull-up and praise with Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church. Pastor Gregory Williams is the pastor. You're invited to worship with the Mount Zion First African Baptist Church. Conference call schedule is Sunday morning worship service at 10 o'clock a.m. Prayer meeting is held at 12 o'clock noon. And then Bible study is held each Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. The conference call-in number is 515-604-9765. The access code is 288180. Deacon Joe Wedges is the chairman of deacons. Dr. Dan James III is the pastor. The Gethsemane Baptist Church invites you to worship with them during their worship service. Sunday morning service is held at 10:30 a.m. via Zoom. The public call-in number is 1-312-626-6799. Again, that number is 1-312-626-6799. The meeting ID number is 817-5979-0075. The passcode is 751-054. Bible study is held each Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. via conference call. That number is 229-234-9066. The Gethsemane Baptist Church also extends you a very cordial invitation to worship with them in their outdoor worship service to be held on Sunday, April 4th at 10:30 a.m. as they celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Everyone is asked to please wear your mask when you come. Reverend Cecil Strother is the pastor. You're invited to worship the Mount Calvary Baptist Church and its Church Without Walls as they're celebrating the 139th church anniversary today, weather permitted. If the weather does not allow it to be so, you are asked to join Mount Calvary live on Facebook Live at 10:30 a.m. this morning. If weather permits, they will be with Church Without Walls today, but everyone has a cordial invitation to worship with them. Mother Evelyn Lewis, church mother, Deacon Leon Spears, chairman of deacons, Reverend Isaac H. Owens is the pastor. The Crisp County School Nutrition Program Meal Package Pickup, starting March 23rd and offered each week. I would like to remind you at this time that no packages will be given out the week of April 5th through 9th. Meal packages are for anyone ages 2 to 18 years of age. Parents or guardians of children can pick up meals for their children without the children being present. The meals will be packed with 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches that are ready to eat, with some meals needing to be reheated. Reheating instructions in bag are in the bag, or you may go to the website at www.crispschools.org. Meal plans for instructions on how to reheat the meals. The route will be as follows. Tuesday's route will be from 9 to 9:45 a.m. Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church, Straight Life Church, and then from 11 to 11:45 a.m., the Housing Authority, Sunset Homes, located at 503 West 22nd Avenue. From 12 to 12:45, Rosewood Estates, located at 57 Rosewood Circle. Wednesday's route, 9 o'clock to 9:45, Zion Hill Church, 678 Twin Pines Road, Blackshear Place Business and Events Center, 1015 Blackshear Road, from 10 until 10:45 a.m. Pena Church, located at 3738 Old Pena Road. Housing Authority, Sunrise Home, Morningside Housing, 610 North 2nd Street, from 11 to 11:45 a.m. The Araby Bedgood Road, Araby, Georgia. First Baptist Church Child Development Center, 205 East 13th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. From 12 until 12:45, the Old Crisp County Middle School Lunchroom Parking Lot, located at 1116 East 24th Avenue. Thursday's route, 9 o'clock to 9:45 a.m., Salt Lick, located at 2346 Georgia 300. 10 o'clock to 10:45 a.m., Thrive Church, located at 191 Ingram Boulevard, Cordele, Georgia. 11 o'clock to 11:45 a.m., Housing Authority, the C.C. Shearer Homes, located at 1111 McClendon Circle, Cordele, Georgia. From 12 until 12:45 p.m., the Housing Authority, which is located at Clara Scott, will be 213 North 13th Street. Remember, as always, if you have questions or concerns regarding the meal pickup, the meal packaging, and anything concerning the school nutrition program of Crisp County, you may contact the Board of Education and ask for the nutrition director, and they will be so happy to share all this information with you. Again, you may contact the Crisp County School Nutrition Program for more information and more details regarding the routes that they will use in distributing the packages for the free lunch in the upcoming weeks. As always, remind you, if you have any announcements, you may bring them to us at the funeral home before 12 o'clock noon on Saturday, or you may fax them to us at 229-273-5111. That concludes our announcements for this morning.
And now for dedication. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following: in loving memory of our beloved Deacon Chairman Deacon O.C. Smith, better known as Deacon Bud Smith, who departed this life March 11th, 1999. Dedication requested by his beloved wife, Mother Leila Mae Smith, all of his children, Miss Barbara, Miss Elaine, Mr. Matthew, Mr. Otis Jr., and Ivory, his beloved grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and all of the members of the Zion Hope Baptist Church of Winona, Georgia, where he served as chairman of the Board of Deacons for a number of years. Gone, but never will be forgotten. As always says, served on the press that ordained me to be a deacon, never will forget him. In loving memory of Deacon Arthur Lewis Jr., departed this life March the 12th, 2015. Dedication requested by the Clay, Lewis, and Bryant family. In loving memory of Mrs. Danita Davis, who would have celebrated her birthday March 13. In loving memory of Mr. Augustus C. Telfair Sr., who departed this life March 15, 1964. In loving memory of Mrs. Claudia B. Clark, who would have celebrated her birthday March 17. In loving memory of Mr. Charles Hamilton, who departed this life March 19, 2020. In loving memory of Mother Isabella Jones Beal, who departed this life March 20, 2006, and would have celebrated her birthday March 26. In loving memory of Mrs. Ethel Telfair, who would have celebrated her birthday on March 22nd. Dedication requested by our husband, Chief Augusta Telfair, of children, grandchildren, and the entire Telfair and Everett family. In loving memory of Mr. Rex Allen Poole, who departed this life March 23rd, 2012. In loving memory of Mr. Robert Allen Gaines, who departed this life March 24th, 2012. In loving memory of Mrs. Nikki J. Smith, who departed this life March 24, 2005. 5, gone but not forgotten. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following. Happy birthday to Miss Latoya Lewis. Happy 93rd birthday to Mother Louise James Everett of Vienna, Georgia, who celebrated her birthday Friday, March 19. Happy birthday to our friend and brother, Dr. Brooks Robinson, who is celebrating his birthday today, March 23rd. And happy birthday to the Reverend Carl Munns Jr., who will celebrate his birthday Thursday, March 25th. It is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcement. United States Navy veteran Mrs. Doreen Johnson Franklin, age 67, of 617 Vernier Drive, Altamont, Florida, died February 3rd, formerly of Lee County, Georgia. The funeral service with military honors for United States Navy veteran Mrs. Doreen Johnson Franklin, age 67, will be held Friday, March 26 at 12 noon, graveside at the Andersonville National Cemetery in Andersonville, Georgia. Mrs. Eroyce Hughes Davis, age 76, of 309 West 1st Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Friday, March 19th at Navison Health in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Eroyce Hughes Davis, age 76, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Director serving Cordele in Vienna will be in charge of each of these arrangements. Our program this morning is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones were laid to rest during the past week. The family of Miss Manny Pearl Griffin of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mr. Roy Hamilton of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mother Bessie Mae Holton Wright of Americus, Georgia. The family of Deacon Willie James Billingsley Sr. of Unadilla, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Deborah Ann Green Kendrick of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. L.J. Williams of Warwick, Georgia. Our program is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones will be laid to rest during this week. The family of United States Navy veteran Mrs. Doreen Johnson Franklin of Smithfield, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Eroyce Hughes Davis of Cordele, Georgia. Our program is dedicated to all of the sick and shut in, to all patients in the local and surrounding hospitals, nursing homes, and rehabilitation centers, to our beloved ministers and their devoted family members, to all retired educators, to the men and women serving in our armed forces, both stateside and abroad, to all veterans, and to everyone who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. It's a pleasure.
Yes, I'm going to walk. Oh, that will keep my way. Oh, child.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you've enjoyed our program. Tune in again on next Sunday morning. In your time of need, contact the competent, capable, and dependable staff at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.